Deadliest gangs tonight. We'll take you on a journey into darkly lit subways leading to eerie little corners. We go to the home of Prohibition, the originator of the drive-by shooting, and home of the Tommy gun. We go downtown Chicago to check out America's fastest growing gang. They are Gangster Disciples.
On tonight's show, the gang leader sentenced to 200 years in jail. In the heart of gangland with Chicago's leading crime reporter. But first, who are the Gangster Disciples?
My friend was shot as she was leaving an after-school dance, caught in a crossfire between two rival gangs, and she took 3 bullets.
Some of the most brilliant people I have ever gotten to know in my life are gang leaders.
The homicide rate in this city is almost 2 a day, and almost all of those are gang-related.
Chicago, the Windy City. With a population of over 10 million, it's the USA's 3rd largest city. And with recruitment on the increase, its gang problem is the fastest growing in America.
There are some very ugly things about Chicago and some very beautiful things about the city. I do hope that some things will change, but it'll take a lot of doing.
As a city, Chicago is certainly no stranger to the influence and the behavior of gangs. As the Depression and Prohibition era of the 1920s saw the reign of one of the world's most notorious gangsters.
Chicago has a history, not just in terms of street and drug gangs, but it goes back to Al Capone and the days of the gangsters and the early mob and Prohibition, the Depression in the 20s, and people associate Chicago with Al Capone and with Tommy guns and with gang violence.
The days of Al Capone and the Italian mob, however, are long gone, as an even more powerful and deadly gang has control over the streets of Chicago.
The Gangster Disciples are one of the largest street gangs as far as membership in the city of Chicago and the surrounding area. The Gangster Disciples, or GDs as they refer to themselves, have probably the largest membership. It's well into the tens of thousands.
The Gangster Disciples have been a presence in Chicago for about 35, maybe close to 40 years that I'm aware of. They started in the 1960s under the leadership of a guy named David Barksdale.
Since the early days of David Barksdale, the power and influence of the Gangster Disciples has exploded. Experts now believe that gang members are getting younger and younger.
It starts at age 10, 12. It moves on up into adolescence, up into the early 20s. By the time you reach the 30s, most of these gang members have left.
With other rival gang members in surrounding areas, the Gangster Disciples have developed special techniques to distinguish themselves and also to mark their territory.
The GDs, they mark their territory with insignias. The most common symbol that they use is a 6-pointed star. A Star of David is what they call it. They've adopted it from Jewish religion, Jewish faith, because of their leader, David Barksdale.
The colors blue and black have historically been associated with the Gangster Disciples. The use of those symbols, I think, is widely overblown and certainly are not used nearly as much as they might have been 10 or 12 years ago, simply because the gangs have become more sophisticated.
Many experts claim that the Gangster Disciples are more brutal and vicious than their Italian predecessors. They're not just a petty street gang into spray painting and gang colors. Their trade is far more sinister than bootlegging and moonshine, as they run the city with an iron fist.
The main trade of the Gangster Disciples is without a doubt a drug trade. That is the major thing for them is drug trading.
The big drug for the Gangster Disciples was cocaine. When cocaine became popular, when it became vogue, that is when they really took off in terms of a business. It's a drug that knows no boundaries. It transcends racial boundaries, geographic boundaries, income boundaries.
The Gangster Disciples and the drugs trade go hand in hand in Chicago, both feeding upon each other, ravaging neighborhoods and effectively leaving them like war zones.
Oh, devastated. You're seeing the results of what crack cocaine has done. It's devastating. neighborhoods. All of these neighborhoods used to be thriving. There used to be businesses up and down the street. The people who lived over here have been hit, and hit badly, by the plague of drugs.
You have people who are addicted to drugs, who have a gang source for the drugs, but they got to pay that source somehow. How are they going to do it? They're going to break into your house. They're going to take your wife's purse. They're going to break into your car. They're going to steal your car. They're going to sell your car. They're going to do anything it takes to get the money they need. A kid in Chicago was shot and killed for his gym shoes. Well, understand, those are $100 gym shoes, and I can sell those on the street for 20, 30, 40 bucks. That's 2 rocks of cocaine. That's the mentality of somebody who's on drugs, and the gangs feed off of that, and the gangster disciples have especially been good at feeding off of that.
As the USA accounts for over 60% of the world's drug intake, the lifespan and trade of the gangster disciples is something that is almost guaranteed to survive as they supply America's insatiable drugs demand.
As a gangster disciple, from a business perspective, cocaine is one of the most addictive drugs known to man. So when you've got people, you've got them hooked.
Still to come, Gang Style, the uniform of gangland Chicago. On the street with America's leading crime reporter. But first, Chicago's most wanted. The Gangster Disciples are one of America's most deadly street gangs. Considered by some to be more of an organization now than a street gang, there is one man, and one man only, sitting on the throne of the Gangster Disciples.
Larry Hoover is probably the most infamous gang leader in the history of gangs in the United States, and the Gangster Disciples is essentially the IBM or General Electric of gangs.
Larry Hoover was sentenced to 200 years in a state penitentiary for first-degree murder back in 1973. Since his incarceration, Hoover has gone on to become one of the most powerful gang leaders the United States has ever seen.
I think if anyone needs to understand anything about Larry Hoover that they don't know is he's a very intelligent man. You don't put together a $100 million cold-blooded, ruthless organization and run it seamlessly from a prison without being pretty smart.
Street gangs is a fact. They've been a part of society, this society, since the early 1900s. And they're a fact that you can't get around them.
Larry Hoover is a person who, upon first meeting, can be disarmingly polite and charming, but he also has a reputation on the street that is well deserved because he has given out orders to have people killed who went against him.
In 1978, at Pontiac Maximum Security Penitentiary, 4 corrections officers were taken into the cafeteria area by some gangster disciples. The doors were locked, they were laid down on the floor, shanks were brought out, and they were murdered one after the other. What was the motivation? It is my opinion that that was his way of communicating his power to the Illinois Department of Corrections, knowing that he would be there for a very long time.
Hoover is perhaps one of the most ambitious gang leaders the world has ever seen. He set a structure for the Gangster Disciples that in many ways is unique to the criminal underworld.
It's possible at that time that the Gangster Disciples were one of the most effective American corporations, albeit illegitimate, who was using Japanese management theory of quality circles, management influence from the ground up. How can you sell my drugs better on the tier of the penitentiary? I'm listening to you. I want you to do your job better. How can I be there for you? And they're putting that back into theory. And some people I talked to actually said that it worked.
Being locked away inside a state penitentiary never hindered Hoover's insatiable appetite for power. In fact, some experts argue it made his quest even easier.
Basically, what prison turned out to be was the chairman of the board's meeting room. You know, it wasn't a place where this guy was locked away from society. He has access to his governors, to his street people. He could run discipline. He could change drug routes. He could change drug territory. He could order a gang war. He can do it all from prison.
Only when Gangster Disciple members are sent to a state penitentiary does Hoover really get his claws into them.
Sometimes a lot of the kids can't read when they go inside the penitentiary system, social truth. So the Gangster Disciples went through a program where they would make them get their GED so they could read. What's the first thing they're reading? That's going to be This is going to be the Gangster Disciples literature.
Say you're in for 2, 5, 7, or 8 years, you will go through Larry Hoover's program. You will make yourself physically stronger. You will make yourself mentally sharper. You will become more in tune and accustomed with the gang procedures and protocol for his corporation. And you will go out on the streets and you will become better at what you do and more dangerous and more ruthless to get the job done for Larry Hoover.
Hoover's quest for total power was ever present when he was behind a political movement called 21st Century Vote that had a dangerous hidden agenda.
It was an effort to register young people to vote.
It's telling the kids that if you get involved in what's going on in your community, that you can make a difference, that you can become socially accepted and work hard than anybody that can come from any background and be a part of the system.
And it got many people involved in the process that normally would not be involved in the process, and they were very successful. What many of them did not know about was a hidden agenda, which was to get Hoover out on parole.
21st Century Vote offered political leaders to be elected for local Chicago government. The candidates were either strongly influenced by the Gangster Disciples or actual members themselves. Some of them got dangerously close to political office.
The voter turnout rate is not always very high for elections, and it's conceivable that someone could get in.
This prompted American law enforcement to put together a comprehensive case against Larry Hoover. In 1995, he was sent to a maximum security prison where all his previous benefits and contacts with the outside world were now essentially cut off.
Larry Hoover is on lockdown. He is locked in a cell almost 23, 24 hours a day. What they've managed to do is now they've isolated him and they've cut off most of his contact. They've strangled him for the most part.
What the case essentially did was it stopped the Gangster Disciples from going the direction they were going with as a criminal organization, which was to influence life in this society further than they were. They had done enough damage. Enough is enough. They had to be stopped.
Well, at this point, I really don't have no measure of control out there. I'm totally segregated from society at this point. I have no contact.
Larry Hoover is in a federal penitentiary for the rest of his life, so I think that's a good indication as to who's winning the war. We have their king.
Well, in essence, I can't leave, but what I started is going to carry on.
More tales from Gangland after the break. Meet Dave and his dog, notoriously dangerous gangsters. Dave has been a Labrador trainer and the most vicious kind for many years. Remember, dead men don't tell lies. Dave did not want to speak on this particular day. Welcome back to the world's deadliest gangs. Tonight, we're in the birthplace of the real American classic gangster, Chicago. Long gone are the days of the flat cap, the fitted suit, and Al Capone. Nowadays, the gangs have a more casual look, but even more sophisticated.
The Gangster Disciples are the most infamous gang in Chicago today. They are to street gangs what Microsoft is to Wall Street. Their business suits come in the form of tattoos, jewelry, hand signs, and the company logo is the Star of David.
The most common symbol that they use is a six-pointed star. A Star of David is what they call it. They've adopted it from the Jewish religion, Jewish faith, because of their leader, David Barksdale. They elevated him to the rank of King David and adopted a six-pointed star.
Their corporate emblem is expertly painted anywhere they can find. Gang identity goes much further than tattoos, clothes, and graffiti.
Hand signs are a very reliable indicator of gangs, and in fact, much more than the clothing or the colors. A hand sign is just a way of holding your hands in a very prominent, usually held in front of the chest. Could be crossed hands with this is a Gangster Disciple sign.
If you're a member of a gang in a big city, you have a problem. Who can I trust? Who's with me? who's against me. Now, the markers on the body, the tattoos, the clothing that you wear and things like that will help you to sort that out. But maybe you don't want to be too obvious about it. So here's a good idea. You develop like a sign language.
The hand signs are particular to the gangs. It could be something that forms a letter, or it could be some kind of a symbol, and can be very intimidating. It can also be a little bit dangerous because deaf people use their hands to sign. And there have been instances where deaf people have used their hands to sign and communicate and have been mistaken as gang members and killed.
They also like to wear their clothes emphasizing the right side of the body.
They represent by putting things to their right. Maybe an earring in his right ear, a baseball cap tilted to the right, a pants leg rolled up on the right side. Anything that goes to the right would signify that that person was a member of the Gangster Disciple.
Due to recent police successes against the Gangster Disciples, the gang members have had to tone down their dress in order to be a little less obvious.
The use of those symbols, I think, is widely overblown and certainly are not used nearly as much as they might have been 10 or 12 years ago, simply because the gangs have become more sophisticated. You're not going to find a hardcore member usually sporting gang colors or wearing anything that would make that person easily identifiable by the police. That would just be foolish.
Southside Chicago, a Gangster Disciples stronghold. For the last 40 years, gangs like the Gangster Disciples have had rich pickings in terms of recruiting gang members. Bob Aira is a reporter for CLTV News. He's been reporting on Chicago's gang problem for the last 15 years. He works on the streets in some of the city's toughest areas and wears a bulletproof vest to work every single day.
The only way to really learn about what life is like in these surroundings is to actually be there, to talk to these people, to see it firsthand, to smell it. I mean, smell the urine. The urine's all around you. There's people just pissing all over the place. What you have in the housing projects is you have thousands and thousands of people brought together. These people are poor, these people are undereducated, these people are generally on welfare and do not have jobs. You're in a housing project right now of 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people. Down the street here, there's 8,000 people in the same setting. You know, when you stack abject poverty, when you bring together all of the gangs and the guns and the drugs, I mean, you magnify the problem tenfold. It's exponential. It's almost like a zoo for people. You've got the cages, you've got people urinating and defecating everywhere, spray painting gang slogans on the walls. No one really cares. I mean, there's no sense of pride, there's no sense of anything here. You know, it's just people doing whatever they please. The most disturbing thing about working in that environment is looking around and realizing there are a lot of children right there whose lives are essentially over. They have no hope. What's the gang problem like around here? How bad is it?
It's bad. They always shooting,
what's it like?
Killing each other and all that.
What's it like growing up around here?
Oh, it's fun. It's fun growing up around here.
With the gangs shooting and killing each other?
Yeah, it's fun.
What the gangbangers do is they entice these children as young as 8, 9, and 10 years old. You know, these children, they come from broken homes. If they're lucky, they have a mother. If they're lucky, she's not on drugs or isn't a prostitute. But most of the time, something like that does occur. You know, the mother's on drugs, so what does she do? She goes out and prostitutes herself, not to buy food for the children, but to get more drugs to feed her habits, so the children go hungry. They're subject to verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and abuse of all kinds at an age of 9, 10, and 11 years old. Imagine that. It's a very difficult environment. Imagine being a child when you look over here. This is all you have to play with. This is your alternative, a basketball court that you can't even get on because it's flooded. It doesn't have any functioning basketball rims. That's recreation for these kids. I mean, they've got absolutely nothing.
High-density housing and high unemployment provide perfect conditions for gangs to flourish, with young kids eager to be recruited.
You got these punks over here. Look at them. You know, 12, 13, 14 years old, knives, guns, drugs, hanging out. They're not going to make it. They're just not going to make it. There's your 6-point Gangster Disciples. And you saw outside the DDs. You see a lot of this around here. I mean, you see the gang graffiti and the gang signs, but you also see rest in peace a lot. That usually happens after a gang shooting, gang killing. They're essentially all over the place. You know, we talk about terrorism. You know, we're all in tune to terrorism now because of what happened on September 11th. People seem to forget there's terrorism going on every single day in these neighborhoods in the city. This is the war ground. This is the war zone you're talking about. This is where the fighting is. This is ground zero in the gang wars. And unfortunately, it's also the place where most people, you know, are trying to live and make a living and raise a family. The majority of people in these buildings are good people who just don't have the education or the financial wherewithal to do anything else.
Hi, I'm Nina Horton.
Hi, Nina, how are you?
I don't think they shouldn't tear down our building. Why? Because we got the best buildings.
Best buildings.
Yeah, we're out of best. Tear them all
around
down.
you.
I believe they should tear them all down. They should have been to them down. What's taking them so long to tear them down?
They should have torn them down.
All the trouble comes. It's a lot of trouble over here. They need to tear them down. Seriously though.
Well, the trouble's the gangs. Well, what do the gangs do around here? They own the place?
Basically.
These people live in fear, they live in terror, and it's a legitimate fear. Kids are killing each other, kids are getting killed, and very few of those kids have a lot of hope to get out of there alive.
Bob has a clear understanding of the dangers of his job and the threats gangs pose. Today it's time for him to leave, but tomorrow and the next day he'll be back to continue his campaign against one of the most brutal and sadistic gangs of all time. The Gangster Disciples are clearly one of the world's deadliest gangs.
Well, that's all we've got time for on the world's deadliest gangs. If you're worried about organised crime and gang warfare, remember, I can't help you, pal. I've got to get out of here. Later. Bank robbery, money, and the most feared of all. Or Gangchester.
Fucking come on in, eh?
Kidnapping. Power. Firm. The Yardies. If you have any trouble with organised crime, yeah, call 1-800 Big Tony. Very naughty. The world's most dangerous cities. The Hells Angels. The Drugs Cartel. The Bloods, the Crips. Hijacking and murder. The world's deadliest gangs.